Hey guys, future Blevins here. Just a little disclaimer, this episode's just a touch more explicit than the flagship show is, so if you're expecting it to be completely PG, there's just a few swears here, but other than that, it's a really great episode. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Around the Payload. I am your host, the Blevins, and we have got an action-packed show today. I'm just going to jump right into it because I always start and do these super long intros for no reason whatsoever. But if you're new to the show, Around the Payload is kind of like Around the Horn from ESPN, except there's no stakes whatsoever except for the awesome fake internet points you get. And you're going to hear some sounds that sound kind of like this. That is me giving out points for you audio-only listeners. It's not your quick match game that you forgot about 10 minutes ago, though you should go get back to that. But let me start off by introducing the hosts I have today. We have a very first look in real life of Pesto Enthusiast, the founder of Junkertown Journal and the co-host of the Around the Watch podcast. Hello, sir, and thank you for coming on.
Greetings.
We also have Bren. If you guys don't know who he is, start watching Overwatch League. He is a desk analyst and a noted troller of Sideshow. Thank you for coming on the show.
No problem. Anytime.
We also have Thist, the host of the Laggin Balls podcast and writer for DBLTap esports. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on. And those of you ATP fans, of course, no Thornrain, who is back from his banning from the show after we won't even mention the comments he made, but go back and watch episode 1. He, of course, is the co-host of the Blackwatch Report and, all jokes aside, a founding father of Around the Payload. Thank you for coming back, man.
Thanks for having me back.
Let's jump right into this. We've got 3 rounds of action, a lot of stuff to talk about, and we want to get through it as quickly as possible. None of the hosts thought that this was going to even go to an hour, so let's see if we can keep it under. But we will start.
All right. We'll see. We'll see.
Bren's like, yes to every question. But we will start off with round 1.
Round 1. Capture the objective.
So the signing period for Overwatch League has begun and is in full swing. And, of course, the number 1 team that everyone thought was going to be signing players was the Florida Mayhem. And their first public signing that is out there now was Zappis. So we'll start with you, Pesto, because I know the Florida Mayhem are near and dear to your heart. How does Zappis fit into the team? Is this what they need? Tell me about this signing.
It's some of what they need. I mean, they should not have gone with 6 players to begin with. Here's the thing. So Manitin has been, I'm not sure he's Mayhem's best player, but I'd say he's their most consistent high performer. And since D.Va's not going out of the meta anytime soon, I think Zappis is going to be alongside Manitin, not replacing him. With 3-4 tank possibly coming into the meta, I think you're going to see the 2 of them playing alongside each other. I think that Zappis is going to stay off tank and flex DPS, sort of like what we saw when he was in NIP. And I also think that it's good that they have someone who was on NIP when the last tank meta happened, can provide some of a leadership role. He was a standout player back then, so I'm glad to have him. Now we only need 3 more signings and 2 more coaches.
Yeah, for sure. But Bren, we'll go to you next. Is this what the Mayhem needed here? What are you thinking about this signing?
Yeah, he's a good pickup. He's one of the players who we were sort of questioning why he was left out in the first place. He's got existing sort of not chemistry, but there was a rivalry there when he was on Ninjas in Pajamas and when they were misfits. Yeah, it's just a solid pickup all around. He's like one of the best off tanks that you could possibly pick up. Means we'll probably be seeing quad tank, I imagine, triple tank comps more often out of Mayhem. They're going to be more popular now that Mercy's dead. Not actually dead, but just a little bit nerfed. So yeah, I like it. Good pickup. Big fan.
Yeah, definitely a big pickup. But Thist, I want to get your thoughts on Zappis coming to the Florida Mayhem.
I think what you said about the multiple tank stacking is great. I think that could help. I don't think that this is going to change the tide for Mayhem. I don't think that it's going to make them a top tier team, but it's definitely a step in the right direction, and they could have done worse. So.
Yeah, definitely could have done worse. They could have signed me. That was definitely something that they could have done. But Thorn, last word on Zappis coming to the Florida Mayhem.
I really think that he's going to come in more of the flex role.
Mm-hmm.
I personally think I could see him taking Logic's spot, for most maps. And then with the new meta switching out to the triple tank, putting him over on the Zarya and letting him do his thing in Death Ball. Mercy dying is going to really, bump him up, having someone playing on the Moira and the Lucio, the Zen. But we'll see them stage 2 really benefit from this pick. Not so much early on. I think once they get their synergy going, this Zappis pickup for him it's going to do wonders. It'll bring him up maybe mid tier, not too much higher than that.
Yeah. The one, if I interject quickly, and I'm just going to completely go off the rails here and start talking a little bit alongside it, is the biggest change is going to be the Mercy meta nerf basically going away, and the introduction of like the Lucio, Moira being used into more comps. That's the main takeaway from this, because Florida Mayhem's style used to be very much pick orientated, with Logics getting picks. With the Mercy changes, with the fact that you could just resurrect and undo that work, they obviously now had to be playing this passive play style, which they don't like to do, and it's obviously shown in their results. So now they can actually go back to a more pick orientated play style. So we might be seeing them turn up a little bit more. It's still going to be tricky because they're actually up against a very tight competition, and they've already had an abysmal first stage. So, but it can only really go up from here. You can't really get much worse than the Shanghai Dragons.
It's true. You can't really get much worse than the bottom of the barrel. Although unless you count like losing to the Philadelphia Fusion Academy team. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's move on. So this week we saw a kind of an interesting game, specifically Houston versus Seoul Dynasty, and not necessarily that matchup specifically, but the fact that Clockwork had to play instead of Linkser because Linkser was physically ill, like literally couldn't play. So the question here, and we'll start with you, Bren, is how important is it to get these bench players practice time? I mean, the Houston said in the press conference after that they just hadn't scrimmed with Clockwork since the first week. Like and we've seen this with other players too on other teams that are on the bench. Haven't gotten any time whatsoever. What are your thoughts on getting these bench players some playing time?
So bench players are important, but they also need to be good enough that you'd want to be fielding them on a regular basis. Whereas when like Houston Outlaws, when you've got Linkser, when you've got Jake, you're not really going to be replacing those two guys with Clockwork, because Linkser plays everything that Clockwork plays to a higher level. And that's painful for me to say as well. Like coming from TF2, when I knew that Clockwork was this god tier scout player, incredible mechanical skills, but he's just not up to scratch. But I will say this actually, you do have to give Clockwork props for jumping in last minute, not knowing he was going to play against one of the best teams in the league, and actually not shitting the bed. So he did all right there, didn't he? True. Like it's a hard job. He actually performed better than I expected. He actually did turn up a little bit. So props to him for that. But no, it's important that you pick up bench players that you're going to be able to not necessarily find constant play time, because actually sometimes subbing out players all the time is going to be causing you issues in terms of like not really building up definitive strategies around a core group of players. It can harm your team sometimes more, but it's definitely important that they're actually good enough that you can see opportunities to field them.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I did write an article this week called "Don't Blame Clockwork," so I'm in the same boat. In the same boat as you. But Thist, I want to get your thoughts on this. What are these teams supposed to do with these players that they have on their bench? Like, can they dedicate scrim time and even playing time to these players?
I mean, that's the most important thing, isn't it? Just getting in there and scrimming and practicing. But I mean, you can scrim and practice all you want, but it's not going to replicate the way it feels to be playing on stage, you know? And I think a lot of that is, like you can practice and you can play at your computer all you want, but like that's going to affect you mentally. It's going to affect your morale. It's going to affect your team, and it's just going to be completely different. And if we've got people sitting out like XQC, like he's not getting the same experience that the rest of the team is getting,
Right.
and I fear that that's going to be completely detrimental. And I'm worried that like he's going to have to, using him as an example, the most obvious one probably, but he's going to have to catch up and sort of get used to all that. And what if he's got stage fright? Like, I mean, he probably doesn't, but like, what if he does? Like this is as much an exercise in like the IRL as it is in game. So I don't know if that's going to affect him or not, but I don't know. I just wish that there was some way that they could replicate sort of like an on stage, on screen type of feel with other teams, but I don't know.
Yeah, definitely an interesting problem to tackle. And I don't know how much I'm betting on XQC performing well in the IRL stage, but that's a completely other conversation to have. Thornrain, I want to get your thoughts on these bench players.
I think getting them a little bit of time in the practice area it's super important. I mean, if you notice one of your starters is having an off day, map one, you got to be confident that you can pull somebody that's not doing their best and put somebody in there that can be comparable. They might not be better than them on, a normal day, but they might do better when somebody's having an off day. I mean, you see it in the NBA all the time. Bench players come in and win games, put up more points than starters, and you could do the same thing or see the same thing in the Overwatch League, as long as those players are able to get the same type of synergy with the rest of the team, and they can easily plug themselves in and not disrupt the flow of the team's style. And you're not going to get that if you just leave them on the bench and then say, we're 3/4 of the way through the stage, we need you to come in and play one set of maps. Like it's not really going to work for them. But no, I think that they should get as much scrim time in different combinations as the starters, just to build up that teamwork.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy Lin is the first player that comes to mind as someone who came off the bench and then really became a star. But Pesto, last word on the bench players. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, I think it depends really heavily on the specific player and the specific role that the team has envisioned that player being on. I mean, every player in the Overwatch League has something of an ego. They all want to play. They all believe that they're good enough to play. And if you don't get playtime, it's going to breed discontentment. I mean, we just saw Numlock complaining on stream that he wasn't getting any opportunity to scrim. He was very clearly upset about that. He didn't feel like he had the opportunity to prove himself, and he was pissed, and that's completely understandable. And I think you can somewhat alleviate that if you can get all the players to buy into your strategy. If they had said, "Hey, look, season 2."
Yeah. So anyone who
and
doesn't know, that's Semler and Hex playing ranked, screaming.
Anyways, if they had sat down with him and said, "Look, we want you for your leadership. We want you for your Reinhardt. Stage 1 is not that, but we're going to keep you sort of in the loop, and you're going to have a bigger role in Stage 2." If they had sat down with him and explained that and got his buy-in, I don't think you'd see him complaining on stream. But yeah, it varies from player to player. It varies from situation to situation. My heart goes out to the people who are on bench prison, but to some degree, every case is different. I think the onus is on the org to sell the player on the vision for how they're going to be used.
For sure. It definitely has a lot to do with the expectations that were set when the contracts were signed. But let's move right along. Obviously, Stage 2 is coming up very soon after this week. And the biggest thing about Stage 2 is that we're on, I guess, current patch, not even new patch anymore. Mercy changes are live, Junkrat changes are live, etc. So Thorn, we'll start with you. What team just right now has the biggest advantage going into stage 2 with these new changes?
I want to say that the biggest advantage with the new patch for the stage 2 is going to be fuel. You're going to be able to see Custa focusing more on Zen, Chips focusing more on Ana, and then either one of them are going to be able to really up their game with their Moira. And then, you know, we got Carry Hook. We could see Carry Hook running on Lucio again, you know, and then just the new combinations it'll open up where they don't have to focus on having a Mercy out there every time. You know, we're going to see a completely different fuel come stage 2 when they're able to play on the current live patch. And I mean, I really don't think we're going to see this team that we have right now in the Dallas Fuel come stage 2. And I honestly can't wait to watch the next stage of Overwatch League.
Yeah, definitely can't wait either. But we'll go to you, Thist, who's wearing a Dallas Fuel jersey. Do you agree here, or is there someone else who you think is getting a big advantage from the stage 2 differences?
I think most teams are going to get a huge advantage. It just seems like there's a lot of really skilled Ana and Zenyatta players out there. But yeah, Dallas Fuel, Chips is going to get on Zen or Ana, and it's going to be game changing, literally. It's going to be amazing, and it's going to be the Dallas Fuel that I've been waiting to see, you know. And you know, just having that not just a good support, but like a support who's playing their main, you know, like everybody is better, more confident. It's easier to take risks when you're on your main because, you know, that's you in game, like that you're feeling it. So I think that you know, pushing Mercy aside and not looking at her like she's the only option, you know, not putting every single thing on Mercy is going to make it easier for Chips to just get in there and heal the way that we know that he can. And I think for the Dallas Fuel, that's going to make a huge difference because like we've just been waiting and watching this team and just like waiting for them to flourish like we know that they can. And I think that this is going to really help. So
yeah, when you say we, I'm not sure who you're talking about because it's definitely not me. But that's another conversation to have. I just for those of you who are new here, I'm super biased, and yeah, I show no mercy in that regard either. But Pesto, who get it? You see what I did there? Definitely didn't do that on purpose. But Pesto, what are your thoughts here? Who's got an advantage going into season 2 or into stage 2?
I agree with both of the people before me. Dallas Fuel's most successful period was the tank meta. They won championships in the tank meta. Not having a competent Genji is slightly less awful in the tank meta. They're going to bounce back. After that, I would say it becomes a question of who has a DPS flex to a god tier Roadhog, because even though we're starting to see the Hog Orisa comps, I think that Hog is going to have a much bigger place in the coming meta. So I could see this helping. We sort of touched on this earlier. This could help Mayhem be less awful. You're going to get Zappis Manitin as your Diva Zarya. You're going to get Tavik probably as your Hog. Maybe another mid-season pickup for Reinhardt if they're going to run Reinhardt. I don't know. But and their supports come up. And then lastly, I'd say I think this is a boon for Fusion, who really didn't need too much more help already. But I think Fusion, it'll let them possibly get Poco back into the lineup. I think that Braggy will be happy to be back on Rhine. I'm not sure if it's a plus or a minus if one of their DPSs has to switch over to Hog, but I think that at least for Fraggy, definitely, and just for being able to get Poco back in the lineup, I think it'll be good for Fusion.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there on Fusion. But Bren, last word here. Who's got the most to gain here?
I'm hearing a lot of Western bias, to be honest, in this call right now. Not gonna lie.
Koreans don't need the help.
Well, here's my
they're not
point on
getting
this, and I've had this discussion with Monty as well about it, and my personal opinion is that the gap between the Korean rosters and the Western rosters is going to be increased when Mercy's nerfed. When that nerf goes in, you're going to see the skill discrepancy between those teams, between London, New York Excel, and Seoul is going to widen between the Western teams, because they've always been a lot more cohesive in terms of like their focus fire. Even when the tank meta was kicking off, they were still kind of whipping out dive in almost every situation. Tanks were still being used. Like Ana was super overpowered, so you had to use it. But the point I'm trying to make is when it's suddenly Mercy being buffed up to unreasonable levels, made it much easier for weaker teams to take fights against like more skilled teams, because Mercy's such a broken hero and she can undo kills, right? That's why I think when this nerf goes in, you're not going to have the Mercy, the help from Mercy, where it sort of evens out the skill difference between these top teams, and you're going to start to see the Korean teams drift even further ahead and drift even further apart from the Western teams. So there's a chance it could help out Dallas. I'm not going to deny that from you guys, but they've shown more issues than just not being comfortable with the Mercy meta. That's not their sole issue. That won't solve their problems. But yeah, that's my personal opinion, is that the Korean teams are going to get even better, and we're going to see even more separation between them.
Yeah, I can't believe we went that whole segment without a single person mentioning Ryu Jae-hong being able to play Ana. Like, I mean, come on.
I almost did.
Well, if I could give myself points, I would, but I unfortunately can't, so we'll move on. So we got this news confirmed like an hour before we started recording here. Well, yeah, more confirmed than it was before. So I added the question back in, but so we allegedly are seeing Gaguri, Fearless, and Ado being signed from different Korean teams to Shanghai Dynasty, oh my God, I did the Shanghai Dynasty, Shanghai Dragons. I cursed myself. I'm the Blitz again. Shanghai Dragons. And that, of course, notably here is Gaguri as the first female player in Overwatch League. So we'll start with you here. What does this mean, for Shanghai? What does this mean for the league? What does this mean for esports? Is this a big thing, or are people overblowing it?
It means that Shanghai's got a great new player in Gaguri. They're lucky to have her. She's fantastic. But other than that, like, I don't know. I was a little worried because it seemed like she didn't want any part of Overwatch League for a while, and I understand why. It's hard for women in esports sometimes to be in the spotlight, but if anybody can be the first one in this league, it's going to be her, because she's got the chops, like, first and foremost, and she's been doing this long enough that she can probably handle whatever's thrown at her. And I think that the Overwatch League and Blizzard in general, like, diversity is always number one with Blizzard, and there's so much evidence of that all over the place. And I was actually really upset, like, a few weeks ago, the whole diversity thing blew up, and it wasn't fair, because, like, Overwatch League literally just started, and all of the teams picked the best players possible, and that just didn't happen to include any females.
Right.
It happens. It's okay. And what I was trying to tell people, and I'm not trying to say I told you so, but just wait. It's fine. Nobody's saying no. Nobody's keeping women out. It's just a matter of time. And here it is, much sooner than I anticipated, and I think a lot of other people anticipated. But what it means for Shanghai, I don't know. I think that anything could help at this point, hopefully. And I'm excited for them. I hope that this helps them out. I know that Gregory is extremely talented. I'm not sure about the rest, but they have a lot of I think they all have to learn Mandarin now. Is that it? So they've got some other work ahead of them. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just really exciting, and for the league, like, this is a great step forward, and it's making this the norm so quickly. In the league's history is fantastic. So the sky's the limit for women at this point.
Yeah, definitely a lot of good points. Pesto, what are your thoughts here on Gaguri in general, and the Shanghai Dragons, not Shanghai Dynasty? I almost said it again.
I mean, I haven't really followed her since Apex. When she was in Apex, she was a slightly better than average player on a slightly worse than average team. I think that her technical skill has never been in doubt, but she certainly would not be the first Korean player from a middling team to get brought into the league and have an opportunity to prove themselves around better teammates. All of them are going to be upgrades over the current tank line. I think that 4th edition that hasn't been confirmed or announced yet is probably going to have to be a support because they need help there too. I want her to succeed. People think very highly of her. I don't know. As someone who has tried very hard and failed pretty badly at learning Chinese, she's got a mountain ahead of her. 我的汉语不太好，我学习汉语1年半了. And I'm probably butchered that because that's been years. But no, it's a tough language to learn. I think the comms are going to be trouble because it's not like you're putting in a tracer that can go run around wherever and not need to comm. Tanks, especially off tanks, there's a lot of coordination. I think there is going to be some growing pain, and I hope that if Grigori does not come out looking strong, if the other Korean tanks don't come out looking strong, that people understand that there's going to be that growing pain, and there's not going to be some, well, she only got the slot because she's a woman, rah, 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 backlash.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really hoping that doesn't happen. But I, of course, know Reddit all too well, so, and the cesspool that it is. But, Bren, any thoughts here about the signings?
No comment, to be honest. Because the article that's come out isn't an actual confirmation. It's just a collection of sources they gathered. So it hasn't actually been confirmed yet that any of these players are signing on to Shanghai. So I'll just leave it as that, to be honest. When it actually gets confirmed, if it gets confirmed, then I'll have a bit more information and I can spill my point. But
fair enough.
Until then,
we'll have you record a segment and I'll adjust the points post mortem should we need to. Understandable. But Thorn, any thoughts here? Are you calling no comment as well?
I won't go no comment, but I will preface it with, if these are valid signings, as far as Gagari goes and her being the first female, in a lot of the discords I'm in, I saw people saying, Shanghai did it because of the backlash before, and they're just trying to gain fans. Fans don't make wins. Like if this happens and they literally did it just to gain fans because they want to be the first to sign a female player to Overwatch League, that's the completely wrong reason. But I think that she's going to be good enough if she signed to this team to change the tank line. I mean, that's not the only tank that they're possibly getting. They're getting Element Mystic's tank, another fantastic player. So if they completely switch up the tank line, bring in this new flex player, we could see a completely different Shanghai team. I'm not saying, again, that they're going to be a top-tier team or anything like that, but I think they'll win one game. I mean, they're not going to be horrible. And, I honestly want to see Gaguri, Fearless, and Ado get signed, come onto the Shanghai Dragons, take starting roles, and help turn this team around. I mean, it'd be a Cinderella story. Even if they won half of their matches through the season, that's a Cinderella story. That's huge. That's
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah,
and that's all I got on that one.
That's a lot of wins that they have to pull out that they haven't been really even close to being able to pull off so far. So that is that. But that brings us to the end of round one. Real quick recap here of the points. We've got Bren, who has one question omitted, so keep that in mind, at 19 points. We've got Thorn at 22, and then tied at the top, we've got Thist and Pesto at 26. So definitely still anyone's game as we go into round two.
Round two. Capture the objective.
So we've seen a lot of stuff going on with the Path to Pro, Contenders, Open Division, etc. One thing that sticks out right now is that we've got Alicus, who's been involved in the Overwatch esports scene for quite some time, doing various different roles. Right now he's involved with 5 different Contenders teams, but he's only managing one. So Pesto, I wanted to start with you here. Should this even be allowed? Is there a conflict of interest here?
I heard a lot of different contradictory information about this in the last day or so I did some digging. Best I can tell, this is something that was planned, but those plans fell through, and it's not happening, and I'm glad it's not happening because it's a massive conflict of interest. However, even taking aside that it's not happening, putting that aside, this just looks awful. I mean, if you're Boston Uprising, you're saying, you know what, we knocked it out of the park on scouting, but we're not going to bother for our contenders team. If you're Mayhem, you're saying, you know what, we sort of phoned it in on our Overwatch League team, and now we're going to phone it in again on our contenders team. And it's just, Houston, if you're offering the organization, the parent organization money, the parent organization would be fools not to take it. But everyone else involved is just an awful look. And I'm glad that it's not happening. I'm disappointed that it even was suggested and got far enough that it broke as something that could be happening. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'd be very, very surprised if anything came of this. I've also heard that because this fell through, it's also causing other problems with teams building contenders because, hey, you're changing things up mid-process. It's a mess. It's ugly. It's radioactive. Let's bury it and never touch it again.
Yeah, for sure. Bren, regardless of whether this is happening or not, should this be able to happen? I mean, it's not as regulated, obviously, as Overwatch League, the lower division. Should it be able to happen like this?
Well, the reason it didn't happen is because it is as regulated as the Overwatch League.
Okay.
That's probably the reason it was shut down. And also, as well, you need to be careful with these sources from a lot of these stories because, in terms of finding out this information, I know Alicus likes to generate a bit of an enigma, a bit of a mystery around himself, and sometimes he likes to sort of puff up his chest a little bit more than he probably should, and that might be some part of it. I mean, it could be something as simple as a quote being taken out of context. Mm-hmm. From Alicus himself saying, "Oh yeah, I've had involvement with so and so and so," and it could just be like indirect consultation or whatever. Mm-hmm. But we do know he's directly managing the Houstons. However, if we ignore this entire section and just say, in general, should it be allowed to happen? No, absolutely not. It's a massive conflict of interest. It doesn't make sense, and hence why the Overwatch League has rules to not allow it at all. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Thorn, anything else to add here? Is there any sort of argument here to be made in favor of it? Should maybe there be someone who's kind of helping out with everything?
There can be a talent agency that helps out, but this is the first that I heard that it had all gotten shut down. But it came down to, if these teams and organizations were willing to pay a competitor's sister company under the same, parent company, that's on them. I mean, if you want to trust it, you can trust it. But in the same vein, if GGEA, if GGEA puts together a team solely for the purpose of losing to the Outlaws contenders team, mm-hmm. that just tarnishes their reputation. Like, you don't want to blow your whole company because you're throwing tier 2 contenders tournaments. Right. So I don't think that they would have done that, but it is a huge conflict of interest. You don't see it in any other major league how do I put it, sport or real life sport. Mm-hmm. If you own a team, you're not allowed to even be like invested in a company that's related to another team owners. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a no. So like, I'm glad to hear that it got shut down. But again, if it came down to them allowing it, and those teams wanted to pay a competitor to put together a team for them, let them spend their money.
Yeah. We say it got shut down. We don't even know if it happened at all, to be honest, because the rules don't allow it. Like, we don't even know if Alicus was trying to manage or whatever with the other teams. Right. It's just kind of a couple of sources that are unnamed. So, I mean, I don't think you can put too much stock into it. But there are rules in place that means it's not allowed at all. So, mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, take from whatever you want, but yeah, we don't really know if it did actually happen at all.
Right.
See, and that's where that rule book that Nate planned or told us that he was going to let us see would have come in handy.
Oh, no. The Contenders rulebook is public. It's not greatly formatted, and it has like a name that's like 37 numbers long. But I have it sitting around. That one's been public. It's just the Overwatch League one that's still not public yet.
Yeah, for sure. But Thist, any last thoughts on this? I know we've seen this happen somewhat in other esports as well. Is there any other thoughts you got on this conflict of interest?
I wasn't really looking at it that way. I just figured it was kind of his job to build teams, But what you guys are saying makes total sense. And you know what it reminded me of? And this has absolutely nothing to do with anything, although it really does. Remember that part in Bring It On where they bring in that guy to teach them that dance routine? And he teaches it to them, and then they go to like the cheerleading competition, and the other team, there's another team that's got the same thing because it's the same dude. It's
No.
like,
Crickets, I think.
No.
But here's the thing: you're definitely getting points for just deadpan assuming everyone knew the like plot of Bring It On.
I don't know. I just thought you guys were cool. Never mind.
Oh, you came to the wrong place for that.
You've never been leveled against me.
Comes on a podcast, thinks the people that she's doing the podcast with are cool. I got to give you points for that, but absolutely not. This is the least cool place on the internet. But let's move on. So this is one I think a lot of us didn't really think about this when we thought of Overwatch League Season 1 and having, a couple hundred people all in a very confined place in the January, February, December type of time. But we're seeing a lot of people getting sick. We already talked about links are happening, and there's been a handful of other players who've just been literally physically sick. So, Brent, I want to get your thoughts here. How important is it for these teams to keep up the physical side of their training and keeping good health as well as the actual playing of the game?
Super important. Alongside it, indirect to the fact that players are getting sick, because believe it or not, these physicians and nutritionists are not omnipotent. They can't stop people from actually getting sick in the first place. People still get sick when they work out and eat healthily. But no, it is important along the side, because it does have an impact on your performance. The Rogue Squad guys, they had a nutritionist, had a personal trainer, and these guys were swole as fuck. You saw these guys, and they clearly performed in all the tournaments. It definitely helps, and it helps you keep a clear head and whatnot, and helps you perform on stage, among other things. But no, sickness is just going to be a part of it, like you said, because it's such an enclosed area. The stage, you're constantly practicing with your team. You're basically, when you lock yourself in with scrims, if one person's sick, you're all just quarantined in that room now, and you're all most likely going to get sick, unless you just completely separate them. So it is going to happen, and with the nature of the league as well, because of how long it is, it's eventually going to be, some players are going to get sick, as we've already seen. Links are falling ill. A few other players, Unco had an upper body injury, as they called it. I don't know what that meant, but that's the reason he wasn't playing. So yeah, various reasons. But no, super important to basically hire nutritionists, personal trainers, keep exercising. I know Seoul have got one. Dallas are looking into it, if they don't have one already. Immortals are pretty good with that stuff. Not Immortals, sorry. Valiant. A lot of teams are already on it, and that's the case in a lot of other esports as well. You notice in CS:GO, if you look around behind the scenes and whatnot, a lot of these teams have personal trainers, and it's a huge part in keeping a healthy mental state of mind.
For sure. Thornrain, what are your thoughts here on the personal trainers and nutritionists?
Oh, definitely. All major athletes, have these things. Eating right, fitness, all of that feeds into the mental aspect. You have a clearer mind when you're healthier. You just are. I don't think that just a regular doctor should be on hand for each team, but definitely league doctors that are on site would be perfect. Nutritionists, personal trainers, and maybe some therapists for a couple of the teams.
Not naming any names here.
I'm not pointing at this jersey right now. I mean, but no, it's all stuff that would help, and it would improve the quality of the players' lives. It would improve the quality of the play and just the league in general if they had these assets at the ready at all times.
For sure. Thist, shots fired at no particular player for sure. But what are your thoughts here on the mental and physical health for Overwatch League?
I have a lot of thoughts on it. I follow as many of the players as I can on their social media, so that includes like Instagram and Snapchat. These guys, they're eating terribly. As far as I can tell, just like chips and like
jerky,
bacon,
teriyaki beef jerky.
And they're always eating like tacos, burritos. Like it's just, so they're young guys. They're out on their own, sometimes in a completely new country, and there's food everywhere, so they're gonna go and eat all of the time. So, as much as I'd like to think that like years and years of gaming and eating junk food, sort of gives you like an iron stomach, sort of like solidifies your will to live, even though you're slowly killing yourself. I don't think that the pro players should be relying on that to survive. I think that the league should provide specialists and doctors and everything. Like these guys are sitting together in rooms all day practicing. What one of them gets a flu? What do you think's gonna happen? Like it's just gonna wipe a whole team out. Like they're living together. They're all together. And the other thing is like if these guys are foreign, like you go to a different country, you're not going to be used to the time change. I mean, hopefully they are by now, but you're not going to be used to the climate. You're going to be used to the food, et cetera, et cetera. So it's, even if you don't get sick, like you're not going to feel great, Yeah. And
so one thing I will say is that they do get, we all get proper catering provided pretty much throughout the entire day. One very solid meal with as much food as you can possibly have that's balanced. And that's on every broadcast day, so essentially 4 days a week, and that's available to every team. So they usually practice on the broadcast days as well, even when they're not playing. So we do get that, but a lot of these teams as well, like the living areas, pretty much the vast majority of the teams do have their own living areas as well. And in the case that somebody does get super sick, I do know that they just say, you're not scrimming, you're not practicing, stay at home, lock yourself in your room, you're not allowed out. So I may have just exaggerated a little bit when I'm like, oh, they're all trapped in one room. It's like they're all gonna get sick.
Season 3, the Black Plague.
Yeah, like because that would literally kill an entire team. You're gonna start seeing teams like Shanghai Dragons starting to use like biological warfare, just like injecting Dull Dynasty's door, just like trying to get them all knocked out at once.
They're signing an extra player just to throw them into the dorms of the other players to start coughing.
So. Yeah, it's not as bad as I originally made out, and we do get like a decent meal pretty much almost every day. But yeah, outside of that, I do agree. A lot of these teams, a lot of these players are just eating absolute crap. Needs to change.
It's not gonna though.
Yeah, it's probably not. But Pesto, we talked about you literally chugging a gallon of pesto before the show. So what are your thoughts here on eating healthy
for the record? I don't actually do that. I think every player should have an exercise regimen, not necessarily pumping iron, but maybe just a casual jog around the neighborhood, something to get outside, get the joints moving, not be staring at a screen for 16 hours straight. Putting aside your waistline, I think that's just good for your mental health. I think having a team doctor is overkill. Be healthy, exercise, eat well, have a sane sleep cycle. I know that one's a problem, and it doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Have a sane sleep cycle. Do not stay up until 3 a.m. every day playing ranked, and then get up at 8 a.m. because you're just going to be burnt out. If you're gonna get the land plague, you're gonna get the land plague. You can do things to sort of put yourself in a better position. You can lead a healthy lifestyle, but I think that every team is going to get at least some players knocked out by the land plague at some point in the season. And there's really no preventing it. I mean, Valiant is not even in the same complex. Valiant has a team training facility apart from the other 11 teams, and they still have people that got sick. So Landly.
Yeah, it's definitely bound to happen, but we will move on here. So we've talked a little bit about bench players not being able to play, not being able to scrim, and other issues that are involved with having a lower number of players on the team where you have to dedicate the time to them. So, Thorn, I want to start with you here. How much of a benefit is it for teams to have a full 12 players to be able to scrim internally against each other, not just rely on other teams to scrim against?
If you're looking at it as having 12 to solely scrim internally and not do anything outside of your team, I think it hurts you. Like you're not going to get the same effects as playing against another team. Your number 4 DPS on your bench isn't going to do the same reactions that the number 1 DPS of another team's going to do. So you're not going to get the same practice doing solely internal practices. So there should be some type of scrims. I don't think you should limit yourself to only internal.
Good points there. Thist, any thoughts here? What is the benefit here for having 12 players on your team?
Besides, making sure that like half the team stays healthy while the other gets sick. I mean, you've got like sort of a fallback. I think that it's a huge benefit. It allows the teams to run strats that they don't want other people to know about. But yeah, I don't know. Besides the obvious, it's good to have lots and lots of people on your team, and every single player is different. They're all going to bring something new to the table, and some are going to be sitting out and some are going to be sitting in, and they might notice things that the other players haven't noticed about other teams. And I don't know. I think that like more eyes and more minds and more hands on the mouse and keyboard is very, very important.
For sure. Pesto, any thoughts here? Is it a strict upgrade to just have 12 players on your team?
Again, back to talking about bench players, I think that if you're going to have 12 players, you need to go into that knowing how you're going to use those 12 players. I think that it's sort of a terrible situation. Just pick someone up as a warm body just in case you need them later and not have a great idea for what you want to do with them. I agree, definitely. Having internal scrims lets you hide strategies, but first of all, the comment about their 4th DPS versus another team's 1st DPS is spot on. But second of all, just because you have 12 players doesn't mean you have 2 complete teams. I mean, you could say, you know what, we're going to have 5 DPS players. Or you could be San Francisco Shock and say, you know what, we're going to sign 9 DPS players. But yeah, I think it is a useful tool. I think that a more useful tool would be to have your academy team live in LA, or once you're actually moved out to your home cities, have them in the same home city and scrim them occasionally when you are trying to hide strats. But yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. But Bren here, what are your thoughts here? Has London had such a big edge up here having 12 players?
Wow.
Is it going to be
actually, London haven't been able to do it until recently. I think the last week or so, because they never had the facilities. They needed noise cancelling headphones, and they've only just got them. So they actually haven't been doing it. But
they waited
now that
4 weeks. Can you just go to Best Buy?
Possibly, but I don't know what setup they need. I think they needed like additional. It was like networking stuff. Anyway, but the point I'm making is it's a massive advantage. Like you guys have already mentioned, pretty much the solid points. You nailed them in one. Is the fact that you can completely hide strategies. You don't have to let other teams know what you're running. It provides that you need 12 players that are like equal in roles in terms of the current metagame. So some teams are going to get 12 players, but they're not going to have players to like run a normal balanced composition that's going to be playing at a high level. Whereas London Spitfire are probably not going to have that issue because they're a mixture of GC Busan and Kongdu Panthera, and then there's a bunch of other players from Metrofina and Team Liquid, but yeah, it's a massive advantage in terms of what you can actually do, and you'll see this as well when the next team to actually get 12 players that can run these 2 rosters, it comes into part that you're just going to see the gap just widen once again between these teams that actually do have 12 very capable players, because you're going to start to see strategies that they know work, and no other team isn't going to be prepped for it. No other team is going to be ready for it. They're going to have to adapt on the fly in the game, which is very difficult to do, because it is easy to sort of tunnel vision and sort of go into a game with a game plan and not adapt on the fly. There's only a handful of teams that are actually pretty good at this. Johnny's cracking up at something. I think he's looking at. Oh yeah, I know what he's looking at, but he's not laughing at me, that's for sure. But no, it's a massive advantage, huge.
Yeah, it'll definitely. I think this is going to kind of end up being a moot point later on, maybe season 3 when I think a lot of the teams are going to end up having 12. But we're going to move right into the final round here. But before we do, let's recap the points here. Still super close game. We've got Thornrain at 39 points. We've got Pesto and Bren tied at 42, and Thist just barely ahead, 43 points here. So anyone's game moving into the third and final round.
The payload is approaching its destination.
So this, of course, is the buy or sell round, and this one's going to be a quick hitter. We could still get in under an hour potentially, but it's unlikely to happen. But we'll start with you first. This is buy or sell. This is the week that Seoul Dynasty gets back to where we thought they were. They're on a little bit of a losing streak. Obviously, they got that win against Houston, but they suffered 2 losses in a row. Is this the week that they right the ship, so to speak?
Buy. Is that what I'm supposed to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to see them win, honestly. Like, I like them and everything, but like, I want to see the underdogs win. I want to see like a cool big finish. But I think Dynasty began to struggle once the teams built more traction off of the wins against the lower tier teams. But bringing in like a new sense of confidence and comfort in their play style against Seoul, I don't know. But upcoming patch changes and the players being able to go back to their comfort picks, I think Seoul will be one of the final contenders in the playoffs.
For sure. Pesto, buy or sell, Seoul gets back on the winning train?
I would say buy, but I'm not sure this week. I mean, I think that they are a better team than Valiant, but I think that Valiant is in a better place right now. But over the long term, over the course of where we're going to see them step up in Season 2, absolutely buy. They have some of the best coaching in the league, a good sense of what's going wrong right now, and plenty of time to go ahead and fix it. And, I mean, this is a team that has won tournaments with worse players than they have now. So I think they'll be back.
Interesting. But they haven't played against as good a teams, arguably. But that's another discussion to have. Bren, here, buy or sell here. Seoul getting back on the winning train.
I am just looking at the other teams that they're competing against, because I forgot the standings. But I'm gonna go buy, because it's Seoul, and if you bet against the Korean teams, you're most likely going to lose. There's been a few exceptions to that rule in recent times, and again, I'm just going to boast. I was probably one of the only analysts to actually predict that in the Boston game against London. Again, nobody else really credited Boston. I did, for various reasons coming into it, and I also predicted London against Seoul, which other people didn't do. So I've got self-proclaimed god-tier analyst on my Twitter bio. It's obviously true. I mean, I don't get predictions wrong, but it's going to be a buy from me. The next matchups they're playing against Valiant, they're playing against Shock. Shock is going to be an easy win. Valiant, if they play like they've been playing and recently, are going to get smashed by Seoul. And the teams they're competing against for playoffs are Houston and Boston, really. Houston have got to play against London. Houston most likely going to be falling there if they continue to, for whatever reason, not field Linkser. And then the next game is against Boston as well. So it will be most likely Seoul just on the up and up.
For sure. They definitely have a good shot at it at the very least. But Thorn, last word here. Buy or sell on Seoul this week?
I'm going to buy. I mean, if you don't buy here, you're just doing it wrong. Slumps happen all the time. I mean, we've seen some of the best teams in professional sports go on record-breaking winning streaks and then just sputter out and lose 18 games and then come back and just be fine. And it happens everywhere. And if there was any coaching staff that could find the problem, fix the problem, and get their team back to 4 Overwatch, it's Seoul Dynasty.
Yes, and we do know that your dog also agrees, so extra points for the Pupperino. Moving on, we've got a Battle of the Titans here. New York versus London. This is going to be a big one that has playoff implications, depending on how it matches up, how the matches go beforehand, and B for first and second place in the stage 1 playoff. So Pesto, we'll start with you. Buy or sell London overtaking New York this week?
On what timeline? I would say sell for stage 1. I would say buy for the full season. I think that New York is going to get figured out eventually, and I think that London still has figuring out to do. So I think over the course of the full season, I think that eventually London is going to come out as the number 1 team. They've got more resources. They've got more options for changing things up. As for Saturday, I think it's going to be interesting as heck. I think New York wins. I think that Ilios being the third map is the factor that pushes in their favor. I also think it's going to be super tight. But yeah, sell for stage 1, buy for the full season.
Definitely an interesting call there. I mean, I'm always against selling on New York, but I'm not going to take away points for you. Bren is
right. So if you're wondering why I'm like looking over my shoulder, feeling. Reinforce and Sideshow are going through my top 10 Twitch clips of me just being a degenerate and just crying. He's actually crying. Yo, he's actually crying. Oh my god. He's actually got tears in his eyes. Yo. Oh my god. Yo.
So whoever decided that the 3 of you should live together should just like win all the prizes.
Yeah,
what was the question?
Sure.
Sorry.
I wish I could take away points. Actually, I don't, and I'm not going to. But yeah, so we've got London versus New York here. Right now, a lot of people viewing New York as the number 1 team in the league, but buy or sell London overtaking New York at that number 1 spot?
Sell. The matchups dictate, my knowledge dictates. The God tier analyst is proclaiming that New York are going to be winning on the Saturday. Are we saying that this is for stage 1 playoffs in terms of the standings before the actual playoffs? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I definitely worded this question perfectly, so don't question my question,
okay,
but
right.
however you want to take it.
You're the one giving me the points. Don't worry. Forget I said it. Listen, no, but the matchups that London have up next, what have they got? They got against Houston. That's going to be a reasonably tough one, presuming Houston field all their players. However, I still think London will take it. And they are playing against New York Excelsior on a Saturday, of course, which I think will actually go to New York. New York have got the easier matchup before that as well, so there's less potential for them to lose genuine map wins. So even if they're tied in terms of the playoffs, which they won't be because they play each other, but I believe New York will be still number 1.
What about over the course of the season?
Depends on a whole bunch of factors. I feel like there's way too much length in games to make an
possible signings
decision.
And trades, etc.
These are going to be the 2 top teams, though, no doubt, alongside Seoul actually. So yeah, these basically the Korean rosters are going to be the top 3 teams, but it's deciding what order this early is almost impossible because of the amount of factors you need to consider in terms of meta changing, in terms of how these teams choose to actually create their actual style of play, because the meta's going to be shaken up. It's not going to be settled pretty anytime soon. So you could end up seeing that London discover a god tier composition that they're incredibly good at, and Seoul have maybe a more passive style of dive or whatever. There's just way too many variables to make a decision this early on. But at least in short term, stage 1, I will go with New York Excelsior.
I like it. Thorn, thoughts here, buy or sell on London overtaking New York?
I got to go with sell. For the first stage, as it is right now, it's a hard sell for me. I think that New York had a slightly more difficult set of matches coming up to this point. We'll see what happens when London plays Outlaws this week, and then there's the defining moment Saturday when they face off. But I think up to this point right now, before those 2 matches happen, New York is by far the number one, with London coming in at a close, very, very close number 2.
I like it. And Thist, I know you are living in New York now, and also have gone to a lot of and are also gone to the meetups, and are also a big New York fan. So I can only imagine. But are you buying or selling London overtaking New York here?
So obviously, but yeah, no, New York's got it at least next week or this week. And when it comes down to it, like, both rosters are amazing as far as DPS and flex. Like, it's impossible, but I think it's going to come down to tanks and supports, and New York has London beat there, in my opinion. So
definitely agree here. I thought I was going to have to crack down the whip on anyone who picked London, but I didn't, so that's good. Let's move on. Here's a big one. We've seen Philadelphia Fusion's academy team, the Fusion University team, or FU, has been dominant, to say the least, in the matches they've been playing. So, Bren, I'll start with you here. Buy or sell the Philadelphia Fusion University team being able to beat some or any Overwatch League teams?
Buy Shanghai Dragons. That's all I'm going to say. That's all. I'll just leave it at that. All right, just give me 20 points. Hit me up. Don't worry. I've solved you a lot of time here. That's going to be the answer for everyone.
There we go. Thorn, buy or sell here. FU being able to beat all teams.
This is an easy buy. Like, you couldn't get any easier than this. Thank you for this question, because the way it goes down is you've got the Philadelphia University, FU, as confirmed by Philly. Thank you very much for that acronym. These guys are putting together plays like, who are you, getting on Doomfist, uppercutting a Reinhardt to throw the shield into the sky so Beast Halo can drop the hammer and wipe their opponent. That's next level. And these dudes are all under the age of 19. There's not a single one of them over the age of 18. You know, over half of the team is under 17, like 16.
One particular player that's worth pointing out is Zerg, right? This guy is a ranked prodigy. It's actually kind of crazy. He's 14. He's about to be 15. The guy is crazy. There's a whole bunch of talent on this. This is a scary roster, to be honest.
Yes, it is.
If you take a look at it, it's super scary.
And I'm pretty sure they're about to reverse sweep Envision in the Beat Grand Finals right now. I'm watching. But I will finish with the Fusion Academy team, FU, would beat 100% the Dragons, Miami, and then I'm going to give them the possibility of taking out Dallas and the Gladiators. They could potentially knock out 4 teams.
Wow, interesting. That is a bold claim. I'd love to see that happen. But Fist, we'll go to you. Do you think that FU would be able to beat any of the Overwatch League teams here, buy or sell?
Buy. I mean, maybe not take out Dallas Fuel or the Gladiators, but you know, some other teams maybe. I don't know. Like, there's tons of raw talent. The determining factor is going to come down to like their ability to work as a team under massive stress and in front of thousands of people. But I think that they too have the chops to do that. So I don't know. I believe in them. I do.
You got to believe, if in nothing else, than in FU. But Pesto, last word here. Is Fusion University able to beat an Overwatch League team by or sell?
I'm going to go with everyone else. Absolutely buy. Shanghai exists. Are they better than Mayhem? Ouch. The fact that I have to ask shows how far down Mayhem is. If you were certainly better coached, though, they went and picked, I'm going to butcher his name. It's Ario, or how do you pronounce it? Whatever.
No
they
idea.
Picked up one of the better coaches that's available. Arrow. One of the better coaches that's available. I also think that they're not the only contenders team that could beat Shanghai and possibly Mayhem. I've had the pleasure of watching those guys, which is the team Nuki put together. It's got Kib and Hafi Cool. I think Craggy could be picked up for the Owl right now. I actually think that stage 2 would be perfect for Kib right now too, since he's got a Genji, which a couple teams desperately need, and he's also got a pretty good Roadhog, which I think is going to go off in this meta. But yeah, I think that there's at least those two, possibly Envision, possibly some other teams in contenders that could all beat Shanghai and Mayhem.
Just seeing the life leave your eyes when you had to say mayhem there was
made
worth
their
an
fan subreddit, and I don't even have hope anymore.
It was if it's worth nothing else, you at least got an extra point for seeing the life literally leave your eyes on camera. But we've got one last question here at the end of round 3, and then we'll be cutting to the final 2. And that one came about today. It was the hashtag Baby Bay Challenge, which if you haven't seen it, go look it up. There's some sweet ass pictures, including some of yours truly here. Yeah, we've got the arm up, but definitely. So all jokes aside, it did catch on, kind of like the ice bucket challenge and all of those other meme challenges or whatever that don't involve eating hazardous detergents. But it was for a good cause, and that cause was adolescent mental health. I definitely wrote that down so I could remember, but it was a really good cause. And the San Francisco Shock were good to do it. But regardless of the good of it, just the meme of it itself, Thornrain, are you buying or selling the Baby Bay Challenge?
The meme of it is hilarious that they took the picture of Baby Bay and turned it into the challenge. But I do have to say on the charitable part of it, there was literally just a new segment here where I live. I live in Northeast Ohio, where Ohio is one of the highest rated states in the country for teen suicides. So anything that I can help promote or do to put awareness into that and help fund organizations that are looking out to help those. I have two 15-year-olds who are in high school that are dealing with all of the stuff that's going in high school. So like I took my picture. It's on Twitter. I'm doing the Baby Bay Challenge. If you're not, you're doing it wrong. Get out there and take your picture.
For sure. I definitely agree with everything you said there, but you forgot to say buy or sell.
I said buy.
He did say bye.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
you got bailed out by Bren there. I didn't think you said it, but you got bailed out. Bren, I'll give you a point for being honest there. But this, are you buying or selling here the Baby Bay Challenge?
Oh, I am buying so hard. I'm a Baby Bay, BAE, Baby Bay. I've got this going on. I don't have a picture up yet, but I was gonna do it last night. My hair looks stupid. But no, I think that it's like the charitable part is great. I've been watching this story. Like at first, Baby Bay's like, hey, once I get 1,000 people following my Instagram, I'll post a selfie. And so of course he got like 1,000 people in 5 seconds. Then he posts a selfie. Then people start like making it iconic by recreating it. And then Shock is like, hey, why don't we turn this into something that's like really good? So not only is it charitable and it's helping out, but it's like bringing the Overwatch League community together in a really silly way, in a meme sort of way, which I think is really, really important for the league and for the teams. And I don't know, it's just a really simple way to show support and to do something good. So I'm buying it.
For sure. But it's hard for me to believe that you buy it when you don't have one up of yourself. So suspect, but we'll let it pass. Pesto, buying or selling the Baby Bay Challenge here?
Absolutely buying it. I actually just today wrote a piece about it on junkertownjournal.com. Go check it out. But yeah, basically they backed themselves into having a charitable thing. I mean, this started off as, hey, look at my Instagram. And then the VP of content took the photo in the same style, and everyone else started doing it. And all of a sudden, this joke turned into a huge fundraising possibility. And massive kudos to San Francisco for seeing the opportunity and capitalizing on it. I spoke with Brett Box earlier today. I've been sworn to secrecy on what their plans are, but I think that it's going to be – let's just say that if they're able to get all the people involved that they're hoping to get involved, not only is it going to be great for raising money and raising awareness, it's also going to generate a lot of additional publicity for the organization and for the league. And I think all of those are good things.
Yeah, definitely cool to see what's coming out of it. But Bren, I saw you post one. It was a little bit later in the day, but buying or selling the Baby Bay Challenge here?
Not going to lie to you, mate. It was on that sofa over there about 2 hours ago.
you need to do group 1 with Reinforce and Sideshow.
We actually had this idea of doing it in like a triangle, like this love triangle, and then it'll be like over the top. But can I do buy and sell? Can I do that? I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do it because it's for a great cause. Because mental health issues across the board is, especially not just for men, but in general is an issue that sort of gets swept under the rug on a regular basis in a lot of countries because for whatever reason asking for help is seen as not masculine, so a lot of men just kind of suffer through it, a lot of boys as well, and it's rough. So it's for an excellent cause. However, I'm going to do sell as well. This is my sell point because it made me take a selfie, and I can't take selfies, and I struggled for about half an hour on that sofa at various angles. Doa was looking at me like, "What are you doing?" And I was just like this. Like, I'm just awful with them. But I managed to get one that didn't make me look like too much of a mongoloid. So here we are.
I don't even know how to react to that. Although you did have a picture posted of you in your quote unquote card slinger pose too. So I don't know how worried you were about that.
I bought a Magic the Gathering set today as well.
Oh, that is
they're trying to get me into it. I spent $150
I'm so sorry for your bank account.
I know that is a dark, long road to go down. Jeez. Let me tell you.
I don't know the new meta, but always black deck.
Wow, we're playing the whatever it is, the easy one.
Okay, well, Death and I come from Magic the Gathering, and we mention it like almost every show. I'm trying to not talk about it anymore. I've done a Magic the Gathering podcast. That part of my life is over, okay, guys? But speaking of over, we are done with the final round of regular play, and this was a super, super close one. Let's tally up the scores and see who makes it to the finals.
Was it really close, though? I skipped a question, and I'm still out on top.
It was close because you still have to phone that one in, and you might lose points.
Okay.
Just not submitting might be better for you. But in fourth place, we saw Thornrain at 55 points. We had in third place Pesto Enthusiast at 56 points, and then we have the two finalists here. Fist with 57 and Bren at 58, and you two are going into the final showdown. No points associated here. It's just an outright question. You pick your answer, and I choose the winner. Heads up. I hope you guys are ready, because if you're not, that is too bad. So the final question here is, who is the best Western DPS in the Overwatch League? Fake coin flip that I definitely did. Don't look at my camera. Shows that Bren, you get to go first.
All right. Okay. So I can give you an American player, and I can also give you a overarching Western player if you like. Depends what you're after in general. I'm going to appeal to the North American crowd by saying Dreamcasper as the best Western DPS player right now on Boston. This guy came out of nowhere, seemingly. A lot of people, he was picked up on the Boston roster. A lot of people were like, what the hell are they doing? They're picking up a bunch of nobodies. The president of Gaming Huck himself was like, no. These guys, they're coachable young players. They can be trained up. And Dreamcasper and Striker, this duo of DPS have just been performing time in, time out. The most consistent Western DPS that I've seen. Now, I was going to go with Linksa here, and that would have been an excellent choice because I love the guy to death, right? He's an absolutely mental Widowmaker. When he's at maximum performance, when he's performing, he's popping off, right? And he's actually hard carrying his team. But he doesn't have the consistency that Dreamcasper has shown. Dreamcasper has shown himself to be consistent all the time. I'm on the desk. I'm looking at this guy's statistics across the board. And I'm looking at the team damage done, percentage team damage done for Dreamcasper, and it's rare when it's not about 30%, which is about 20%, or not 20, it's about 10% higher than it actually should be. That's like performing on a very high level, day in, day out, regardless of what team he's playing against. So Dreamcasper, my choice.
Very, very interesting choice there. Although I will say that I'm a little offended that you said you wanted to appeal specifically to the North American crowd when you're talking to me, because I'm actually Turkish, which is a reference to a pre-show conversation that we had.
Won't go there.
Cut. But Thist, your rebuttal / pick as well, best Western DPS in the Overwatch League.
I pick XQC because no, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, well, this is the easiest decision we've ever had.
Listen.
Well, I'm deleting the episode.
She almost got that negative 100 points.
That's true. Actually, Thornrain gets to be the fight. No, okay, go on. You got the laughs.
Okay, well, pushing aside my Canadian bias, I actually agree. Is that allowed with Dreamcasper?
Sure, I was very convincing. I was very convincing.
You can agree. I don't know how well it's going to fare for you, but we've never seen this happen, so go on.
His ability to play any DPS role,
Semler's getting into
proven. Jeez, is one of the biggest factors in Boston, and I would consider his Genji play to be one of the best in the league, if not the best. And that's why we're seeing so many wins from a team that I definitely thought was going to struggle throughout the entire season. So I don't know. Out of all of the teams with all of their amazing players, I feel like Dreamcasper is really standing out above the rest of his entire team. So I don't know. That's what I gleaned from it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with those things. I mean, Brent picked it. I mean, you gave it to him. I'm sorry, but Bren, you are the winner here. I pick Dreamcasper. You sound
so disappointed.
I mean, I don't.
Brent.
If you want to throw it and give her the win, just say to Fran a bunch of times.
Oh, Pesto. You think that just because you're out, you can't lose points, and you certainly can. But yes, Bren, we'll give it to you, Bren. Dreamcasper, by the way, was a fantastic pick. Although I still would have, if anyone would have said Pine, I would have accepted it as the victory. That's just how dumb this show is. But Bren, you are the victor here.
You've captured the objective.
The floor is yours. Sell out. Do whatever you'd like. You've got your 30 seconds of fame.
Excellent. I definitely need it. Follow me on Twitter, Twitch, whatever you want. Brencast on Twitter, Bren on Twitch. I haven't been streaming as much recently, but I will do in a good amount of time. I don't know, in the near future is the correct words I should probably use there. If you want to see some top tier Genji gameplay, again, I coached Who Are You? I coached Dreamcasper on the Genji. I showed them the way. It's all good with the sword. And I dominate in every aspect of both esports and the gaming community. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I just have one last question for you, Brent. Where did you get these lightsaber skills, man? Like, where?
Have you seen the latest video?
No, I haven't.
I can show you my bathing skills as well, mate. What are you worried?
Oh, that one. Yes. No, I did. Yeah. I did see that. Definitely.
We definitely need more weekly lightsaber videos from you guys because they are phenomenal.
We're planning on it, but again, how do you top the most recent video? I don't think you can.
Yeah, you peaked too early, man. You peaked too early.
We really did.
But this is probably the shortest one, but still over an hour. But that is going to be it, guys. Again, thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, all the guests, Pesto, Bren, Fist, and Thorn. Thank you for coming on. I had a blast. Guys, that's going to be it. You can find everything that we do over at highnoonpodcast.com. You can find all the links from everyone in the description below. I'll definitely make sure to put those there. Check out everyone's content. But that is going to be it for Around the Payload, episode 7, I think. But remember to check us out next week, Around the Payload. Bye-bye.